We dig up our dahlias, and on this one we're going to go into a little more depth on the process. So the first thing we do is we pull all of our stakes. In this case, we just use whatever stakes we have laying around, and this year we used this netting to help support our dahlias, and I think we can link in the
we'll send them
post here. We can send you a link if you want to know what netting we use. But in this case, we have this dahlia here. It has not frozen yet, and so it's nice and green still, but it's starting to look tattered. There's some blooms on it. None of that matters. It just matters that it's been in the ground 120 days so that the tubers are to a place where they've gotten their nutrients for the year. So what we do is we label all of our dahlias before we cut them down, because once you take them out of the ground and everything, you have no clue what they are, and they all look different, and they're all it's confusing once you take them out of the ground. But
yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell what it is.
I go ahead and cut them like that, wherever the label is, usually 4 to 5 inches, 3 to 4 inches above the ground. So you just have some stalks that you can handle the dahlia with. Then
what do we do with all that stuff you cut off?
we take all of ours and we throw it into a yard waste, because these are looking pretty tattered. They have powdery mildew on them. We don't really want to keep that in the garden, so we're just going to go ahead and send it away. But if you're not worried about that, you can compost them.
But we don't leave any of the stuff in this bed because we don't want to, we don't want to
proliferate some kind of disease, just in case there's some kind of disease on the plants. We just don't want to reintroduce it back into the whole garden.
But we can put the leaves from the orchard.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we'll be doing that. So you can see this is the part of the dahlia bed that all of the dahlia tubers are lifted. They're all out of there. This is the next part that we're working on. So you can see that we just cleaned it up so that there's none of that, none of the dahlia leaves sitting there.
Yeah. So the next step we do is I usually use a shovel for when I dig the dahlias up. Some people use a pitchfork, but I like to use a shovel just because it supports the tubers as you get up underneath it and you're moving the plant around. I like to be able to keep it in one big clump, because sometimes the tubers are small and they break easily. In our case, we're wanting to separate these tubers into separate plants, and so we need to be a little more careful. If all you're doing is digging them up for the season, then it's not as crucial if a little tuber falls off. But in this case, I go out around the edge of the plant and make sure that I'm not hitting any of the tubers. Usually it's, I don't know, 8-ish inches to 10-ish inches outside the plant.
Because even though this started as one single tuber, it has multiplied itself over the summer, and we don't know how big it is, so you're wanting to go wider than that.
Yep, each dahlia is different. So some of them spread out and some of them stay compact. In this case, I think it's going to be pretty small, but we'll see. So what I do is I get it to where when I lift the shovel like that, it starts to move the plant, and then I'll go out around the other edge just to kind of hit it like this, and you can see it's starting to move. The thing I just want to be careful of is as I bring it up that it has support, so I'm not breaking tubers.
Do you normally move all of the water lines first?
Well, if you're able to. In this case, we can't, because this guy is the main line going right down the middle.
So just be careful that you don't dig up your water line or pierce it.
Yep. So in this case, get up underneath this guy, and he's really
small. It's like a surprise. You just don't know.
Which this is Be Happy, which is a smaller plant, and it has smaller tubers. So each one of these little guys could be a tuber. These are probably too small at this point, and really, in looking at this, we might not even be able to separate this guy out. But,
okay, show me one of the tuber clumps that you dug up earlier from one of the bigger ones.
So a bigger clump might look like this. Just depends on the plant. So these were both in the ground the same amount of time. By nature, this is a smaller plant, and this one spreads out more, and you can see even right there, this is Daydreamer, the tuber can get really big.
Oh, it's huge.
So yeah, really when we plant these Be Happy ones, they are really small when we put them in the ground first. So.
But because you don't know how big that tuber clump has gotten, you can see these are all different sizes. You want to just be really careful when you're digging them, because you don't want to be slicing into these tubers, and you really don't know how much they have multiplied over the summer, and every year is a little bit different. This year our weather was a little bit colder and more wet than normal, and wouldn't you say, babe, that you noticed that the dahlia clumps are a little bit smaller?
They're a little bit smaller for us this year. Last year we had more tubers on the plants as they came out of the ground, and so this year I think it's just every year is different.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, which we'll do another video on, is wash and store them.
Yes, I was going to just grab a bigger, see if we can get a bigger clump here to rinse. So.
And if you're trying to decide if you should dig your dahlias up, we did a video a couple days ago on why, like basically to help you decide, should you dig yours up? Because not every gardener digs theirs up. And we did a whole blog on it too, so comment below and we'll send that to you.
So this is kind of a more typical size that comes out of the ground. The dirt is all around the clumps. Sometimes I just kind of separate the dirt off, but really carefully because I don't want to break the tubers.
And wouldn't you say that our dirt has more clay in it?
It does. Some people's dirt has more sand, so it'll just come right off. In our case, it kind of clumps up sometimes. So what I'll do is I'll do that right there, and then I'll go to take the hose and I'll spray off the rest of the dirt to get it down to a clean clump of tubers.
Cool.